Hello everyone, I'm Ben Veal, this is Wrestling Life, and coming up for you in today's episode is the longest conversation we've ever recorded here on Wrestling Life. Diana Hart joins me, the wife of the late great British Bulldog Davey Boy Smith, the first ever inductee into the Wrestling Life Hall of Fame, and Diana has a lot to say. Now this interview was planned weeks and weeks and weeks ago, before Diana took to social media to very strongly refute claims made by her brother Bret with regards to SummerSlam 1992. As any of you who watch this show will know, that is my favourite match of all time, and we're going to go in depth talking about the claims today, Diana's response and what has prompted that. Before we get to the interview, I want to say a couple of things. Firstly, there are audio issues, so please bear with us. There's nothing I could do about the audio relay on my side, so I've tried as much as possible to not speak during this conversation and let Diana do the talking. The other thing to say is Diana does talk about some very, very difficult and emotionally challenging topics in this conversation, so discretion is advised. I will say that up front. But for now, I will leave this to this episode of Wrestling Life. This is Diana Hart.
Coming up on Wrestling Life.
I'm not sure why Bret would pick, and his associates would pick, the week before WrestleMania for Bret to do a live presentation at a packed house at his bar to talk about SummerSlam. But I thought, oh, well, I have talked to Bret about this in the past. I talked to him in person at length, and my kids have done the same, and family members, and said, Bret, you need to quit bashing Davey. It's not fair. It's actually really unprofessional. You're taking away from what our family and the wrestling world feel is one of the greatest matches of all time, and you guys were a part of it. Why do you want to take all the credit for it?
This is Wrestling Life with Ben Veal, the show that celebrates wrestling's past, present, and future with real talk from real talent.
Joining me on Wrestling Life today is a special guest who is making her second appearance on the show. The first time around, my guest joined me to induct her late husband, the British Bulldog Davey Boy Smith, into the Wrestling Life Hall of Fame. Today, my guest is back to share her own story. Growing up in Calgary, Alberta, Canada as part of the most legendary family in professional wrestling history, she has seen and experienced a side of the business that very few will ever see. Daughter of Stu and Helen, brother of Bret and Owen, and mum to Harry and Georgia, it is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the one and only Diana Hart. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you so much for having me on your program.
Oh, absolute pleasure. Great to have you back. So, you've recently got a lot of people talking with a series of posts that you shared on social media about SummerSlam 92. And anyone who's ever checked out an episode of this podcast will know that my love affair with pro wrestling began with that event at Wembley Stadium, and specifically that technical masterclass that took place inside the ring with British Bulldog and the Hitman. You voiced some very strong views, Diana, about your brother's perspective and how that match all went down in August 1992. So why is now the time to be speaking actually publicly about this?
Well, okay, I'll just read this just because I feel I need to. This is from my Bible. This is Proverbs 3:27. It says, "Do not withhold good from those to whom it is due, when it is in the power of your hand to do so." Okay, Davey's not here to defend himself or just, he's not here. He and Bret had this phenomenal match in 1992, August 29th, at Wembley Stadium. They were the Intercontinental, it was for the Intercontinental Championship title. Bret was the holder of it at the time, and first pay-per-view that they'd ever done outside of the United States, their first pay-per-view without Hulk Hogan. It wasn't a world title match that was being held as the main event. It was in an Intercontinental. There was a lot of pressure on them, and they did a phenomenal job. It's one of the best matches in recorded history for WWE. they've deemed it their very best SummerSlam match of all time.
Yep.
Which is really quite an honor. And it takes two or more to have that kind of legacy, that kind of performance. You cannot do it with one person. I was a part of that match as well. I was the story. It wasn't a storyline. It was legitimate, brother versus brother-in-law, and I was the sister/wife caught in the middle. And I saw the match at ringside. I was with Davey that whole summer. And there were a lot of things that I'd like to go into about what was going on that summer. And I just don't understand why Bret cannot just give Davey the credit that Davey deserves. Davey would have given Bret the credit. I've never heard of anybody doing what Bret has done, like dissecting the match. And it was so last Saturday, I don't remember what the date was, April 11th, I believe, Saturday at Bret's bar. I was a guest at the bar to attend a live presentation of Bret Hart's SummerSlam 1992. Now, keep in mind, this is 1 week before WrestleMania. I'm not sure why Bret would pick, and his associates would pick the week before WrestleMania for Bret to do a presentation, a live presentation at a packed house at his bar to talk about SummerSlam. But I thought, oh, well, I have talked to Bret about this in the past. I talked to him in person at length and said, Bret, and my kids have done the same, and family members, and said, Bret, you need to quit bashing Davey, because it's not fair. It's actually really unprofessional. You're taking away from what our family and Davey and Diana and Harry and Georgia and the wrestling world feel is one of the greatest matches of all time, and you guys were a part of it. Why do you want to take all the credit for it? And, for Bret to maybe give one or two backhanded compliments and say Davey was strong, at times I've heard Bret say really nice things, like he did at Davey's funeral. He gave lots of praise to Davey and the match and his time with Davey in and out of wrestling. It was a very nice tribute. But that happened just a couple of months before Bret's stroke. So I don't know if there's something that's gone on in Bret's head since, where he's putting different things together, and he's sort of woven this story about Davey at WrestleMania or at SummerSlam 1992 as being on a crack cocaine binge all summer with Jim Neidhart, and that's simply not true. That's not fair to Jim either, who isn't here to defend himself. That's not fair to me, because I was taking care of Davey. It's just not true. So anyway, I did ask Bret. He's done this publicly at like so many, and I don't want to be the victim here. I don't want to be, crybaby. I just want Bret to stop it. And because I don't know what the point of it is. And I don't know what the point of exposing wrestling to the fans, telling them how you're doing the magic tricks. I don't get that either, but I've been a part of it. I mean, right now I'm going to be talking about the behind the scenes of that match. And, back when I was growing up, that stuff was for the wrestlers and the insiders, strictly for them only. It wasn't, you're not supposed to be telling how you do the trick, and certainly not be dissecting the match to say where this guy did this wrong, or you see where he's got his foot. That was but I got very upset because I almost feel like it was a setup. I don't know why I was a guest there in the front row. I mean, I was the closest person to Bret. and his associate, and they did a 2-hour presentation with all the TVs in Bret's bar. There's probably, I don't know, a dozen TVs, so everyone in the bar from every angle can see what Bret's talking about. And then having the sidekick rewinding so Bret can again show that, that Davey had a dumb look on his face, or I was pissed off here and I had to kick him. And it's just like, why are you doing this, Bret? Why? And Davey was so good to Bret. He loved Bret so much. And I just do not see the point of it. So I thought about it over, that was Saturday night last week. I thought about it over a couple of days, and I talked to some family members, and they said, well, why is he doing a SummerSlam match? Why didn't he do like his match with Steve Austin or his match with Owen? Two classic WrestleMania bouts. His one with Shawn Michaels, the Iron Man. Like Bret was a phenomenal wrestler, and he's loved by so many people. I just don't understand why he has gotten. I feel like he's gotten very bitter, and I, for me to say anything, it's like, Bret's fan base is way, way larger than mine, and his fans are way more volatile than I can actually fathom. Some of the messages that right, I don't want to be a victim here either. I do not want to be a victim, but some of the messages that people have written are disturbing. Some of the things that were said to my daughter, who has nothing to do with this. All she's done is defend her father's legacy and all the good things that her dad did. And she runs Davey's social media. So, she's that's been targeted, and it's like, okay, I personally wouldn't want any of those fans, if those are they're Bret's fans, but I wouldn't want them as my fans, because they were really it was disturbing. I think some of them have been banned on. I don't even want to give them any credit, but it was very unfortunate that it's just. And Ben, the thing is that despite what people think, because I said, if Bret had this issue with Davey, claiming that Davey was on doing crack cocaine, right up to, at Mick Foley's comedy show in Calgary in 2018, I think it was May of 2018. The whole family was invited. Mick, he was so generous. He had every, bring everybody, and there's a lot of Harts, and we brought our friends, and and everyone was having a great time. And Mick was telling, recalling, and he's a great guy for presenting his material, and everyone was like laughing, and it's just like, God, I'm just so grateful to be a part of this, to know Mick Foley personally, and he's talking about this business that I grew up in, and I just was really felt like such a privilege to be there. And then he invites Bret up on the stage to have a laugh about something, and I believe there was just one mic, so Mick handed Bret the mic, and Bret just went on, right away about my brothers Bruce and Keith, and and he just buried them, and they were in the audience, and they were like they were so hurt. It's like, why are you using a comedy show? It's not your show, to talk so horribly about your two older brothers, and what he felt. He was just criticizing their wrestling style, And then he went from that to how, to the Dynamite Kid and just buried him. And Michelle, Dynamite's first wife, was in the audience, and she's just, like, and then he went on to Jim Neidhart, and then finished off with Jim Neidhart and Davey Boy were doing crack cocaine the night before, all summer long, and right up to the night before SummerSlam. And how Bret basically is the reason why the match was great. And then Mick was like, I mean, I don't want to speak for Mick, but I did hear that Mick was like, I had no idea he was going to do that. So I know my daughter spoke to Bret over the phone and told him that that was horrible what he did to Davey in that live presentation, which was a comedy show. And Bret said something to Harry, called Bret or texted Bret, and Bret said, if you had a problem with me, you know where to find me. And it's like, so anyway, other people in my family told Bret, like, why are you doing that? I don't know what your motivation is. And can't we enjoy what is one of the greatest matches in our family's history? It was one of my dad's favorite matches, as well. I mean, so anyway, Ben, that was 2018. Then he's gone on and on about it on like these one man shows where he's up on stage, sort of unfettered. I don't know if it's becoming like a joke for Bret to go up and just start bashing people who aren't there to defend themselves, let alone aren't alive to defend themselves. But he did it again at Leo Burke's funeral in Calgary a couple of years ago. And my brother Ross just says, this is not the place to be doing this, Bret. Why? I don't know why you don't stop it. Okay, if he's got this, and I don't know where he gets all his recollections from, but anyway, I mean, I think things are confabulating, but anyway, and I went to his house and I showed him things such as Davey's hospital emergency room report, the doctor who we went to on a Sunday in Florida after I flew back to Calgary because Davey was so sick. So the injury happened. Okay, so Bret, it's even on Wikipedia. I mean, when I look up SummerSlam 1992, it's on Wikipedia that Bret Hart claims that the staph infection Davey suffered wasn't even legitimate, and said that Davey had been on drugs for the match. So this is Wikipedia, and I don't. My own Wikipedia page is brutal. So I'm not saying like, Wikipedia is the be all end all. But it bothered me that on Wikipedia it says this about SummerSlam 1992 because it's not true. But
can I ask, Diana? Did you have a conversation with Bret going back to 2008? Because of course it was in the autobiography Hitman that we really got this first detailed breakdown of the match. Did you have a conversation with him back then about how it was presented?
No, I never heard anything about this until that book came out. But I wasn't actually on speaking terms with Bret. His choice, but he wasn't on speaking terms with a few members of my family because it all started because we talked to Vince McMahon at Owen's funeral, and that whole thing was, it's like, okay, whatever, Bret, if you don't want to talk to him, you don't have to talk to him. If you don't want to forgive him until it suits your narrative, like 2010 when he accepted his Hall of Fame induction in what was 2006 or something.
Yeah.
But I don't, you do you, Bret. but I felt differently. I mean, the whole thing after Owen died was, um, it was just really, especially hard on my mom and dad. And there was uh, different camps. Like Owen at that time of his death had actually put Davey and Vince in talks in conversation with Davey going back to WWF, and I know Bret wasn't happy about that. And
This is after Davey had been very seriously injured in WCW.
Yeah. And it's just, I mean, there's so much. It just gets so, there's so many roots, like branches here that's. And then
what was the age difference between you and Owen? Because you were both the babies of the family, weren't you?
Yeah, a year and a half. Yeah, we were close, and I mean, it's.
I don't want to ask an obvious question because, of course, it was devastating. But what was it like for you to go through losing Owen in such a way?
It was just. It was dreadful. It was for everyone in my family. Owen had been, and Martha at that time had been rallying for Davey to get better, and he had a staph infection in his back. He seemed to be plagued. I think it started from when he had the initial staph infection in 1992, where he just seemed to get. And there are things about staph infections. He had he had the invasive group A streptococci. Anyway, it can necrotizing fasciitis or flesh-eating disease. It can. I think everybody has is prone to it. It's like your body has lots of things in it, but if they're dormant, and then something can trigger it, and this happened to a little bang that.
And this
night,
was in, what was this, around July 1992?
It was July 20th, 1992, in Worcester, Massachusetts, and he wrestled Mike Sharp.
Was there any consideration for the match being cancelled at that point? It's been heavily advertised. He is the star of SummerSlam 92. Was there a plan B?
No, I don't. I mean, when Vince, so Davey drove, it's like 2.5 hours from Worcester, Mass to Portland, Maine. And he drove there and went to TV tapings. It was Superstars. Back then, they didn't do Raw yet, and they do TV tapings Monday and Tuesday. So he drove in to Portland, Maine on Tuesday morning for TV taping, and Vince saw him and said right away, he was really sweating, hot. His leg was swelling up and it was red. And Vince said, go to the hospital, go to emergency and get it looked at. And from my conversation with Davey the night before, he drove to, when he left, when it happened, he just said, if I bang my knee, kind of like he described, like if you bang your elbow and it goes hot. So he had done the running power slam to Mike Sharp, and he said as soon as he landed, it just went hot and felt funny. But then the next day he went to was at TV tapings, and he seemed to be getting worse. So he went to the Portland Merseyside Hospital. They did X-rays, and they couldn't see anything because it's flesh, it's not bone. And they said, you've got some damage to your knee, but it was probably from something else. I don't know. He had like a meniscus, something that showed up in the X-ray, but he went back to the TV tapings. He's getting worse, and Vince said, go home, just fly home, Davey, and get better. And basically, I think everyone was figuring we'll see you next week. So he got home, and like the next day, he said, I'm not feeling well at all. I'm just, so Jim Neidhart and Ellie might have been both of them. It might have just been Jim, picked Davey up at the airport and drove him to our home in Land O'Lakes, Florida. And Ellie and Jim lived about 5 minutes away by car. I mean, I considered us all neighbors. And so Davey called me. I was in Calgary doing interviews for the match about, my role in it. And my mom did interviews, my dad and my brother Bruce.
Yeah, I mean, the actual build to the match was really ahead of its time. Like, you didn't really get like realism-based storylines at that time, did you?
No, it was real. I mean, like, it wasn't. Part of when I was saying, even I think I said it to Sean Mooney, I don't want anybody to get hurt, but it's like, I'm worried about Davey's knee, and so. Yes, that was July 21st. I mean,
whose decision was it to put you? Sorry to jump in, but whose decision was it to put you into the kind of the storyline as the third part of SummerSlam?
I don't know. I think it was Vince's. I don't know. It just seemed when I was asked to do the interviews and they were going to be done in Calgary. I was like, sure, I'll go up to Calgary because I'm homesick and I want to see my mom and dad, and my kids can see their grandparents and all their cousins. They didn't have me do the interviews in Calgary. They were done they didn't have me do the interviews in Florida. They had me fly to Calgary and do them. And that was great. And, and then not long after I got there, I'd been there a little while and kind of getting, making plans to see this person or that person, see old friends. And then Ellie called me too. And she said, you better come home because Davey's really sick. So I got home, and I believe it was like Saturday night that we finally got home. And it was hard to get to Florida from Calgary on a weekend, but you catch your connections and stuff. But it was just, and then Sunday we went to Spring Hill to see a doctor there who was a friend of our chiropractor. He was Hulk Hogan's chiropractor as well, and Jim Neidhart's college mate. They competed in shot put and discus, track and field. He was a pretty phenomenal athlete, and he was a good chiropractor. He knew how to manipulate the backs on these big wrestlers because he was strong and big himself, and he had his own injuries, so he was great. And Jim asked him, he said, do you know anyone that can, would be able to look at Davey? And it was a Sunday. So fast forward. The doctor he didn't know what it was. He just said, this doesn't look good at all. And he withdrew all this stuff out of Davey's leg. And I'm not squeamish. I really am not squeamish, Ben, but
you've been around wrestling long enough, haven't you?
Yeah, I'm like the first person in there. Like if you need, whatever. I'm not, I don't mind things like that, but I fainted, which was funny because Davey is the one that was so sick, and they had to pick me up anyway. And then he started pumping Davey full of antibiotics because he said, I don't know, we got to try to save this leg, and this is not good. And he said, I have never seen this before, but it looks like the flesh-eating disease. And so when my nephew Matthew had the flesh-eating disease in 1996 and he died from it, I remember in Land O'Lakes before we went to Calgary, Davey was crying and said, I pray to God he doesn't have the flesh-eating disease, because it seemed like that. They thought, oh, maybe he had malaria, and it's like, how would he get malaria in Calgary? But I remember Davey sort of figured it out before it had been diagnosed because he had it and went through it himself. But when I saw Bret after Leo Burke's funeral, I said, these are the facts, Bret. There's the doctor's report. Here's the hospital emergency room. I didn't bring him the x-ray, and I said, I was with Davey, Bret. Like, do you think that I would be, yeah, oh, that's fine, Bret. Davey, you go and do coke, smoke crack. That was what he said. I mean, it was so ridiculous, but that I would be complacent to it. And back then I was so uptight about things, I didn't even like Davey having, I was just very uptight, kind of sanctimonious about how I never drank, I never did anything bad, and my dad never did anything, so therefore you can't, so, but Davey would, and to say that Jim Neidhart, who was in Davey's corner trying to get him better, like Jim actually and Ellie and I had to carry Davey out to the car. He couldn't bend his leg. We thought his leg was going to burst. It was so swollen and tight. And to think that Davey's, popping in the car, driving over to the Neidharts to do crack cocaine, and Ellie and I are just oblivious to it. It's like, and it's the summertime with all of our kids. It's just, it's so ridiculous, and it's not fair to say this about Davey. And so when Davey was recovering, and he was being drug tested at this time, he still had to because WWF at that time was under a really, really super strict drug testing policy.
Yeah.
Now I want to say for the record that there were lots of wrestlers that failed the drug test that year. I mean, if Davey failed the drug test in January, it has absolutely nothing to do with SummerSlam 1992. If Davey failed the drug test in October of 1992, that has absolutely nothing to do with SummerSlam 1992. And Davey's release from WWF in 1992 had nothing to do with Davey. There's separate things. SummerSlam 1992 and Davey's performance there, he was not on drugs. And I get these comments from, these, people that, think they're going to catch me on something like, oh, well, Davey was fired because he and he and Ultimate Warrior did this. It's like, you don't even know the story. And, Google says this and Siri says that. It's like,
can you clarify what the story is? Because over the years, there have been so many different perspectives about why British Bulldog was let go, why Ultimate Warrior was let go, like the whole rebooking of Survivor Series 1992 at the last minute. Can you shed some light on that?
Well, I don't want to speak with people who aren't here to defend themselves. But from what I was told by Davey, and I believe Davey was, I was with him for, it's just, I guess Ultimate Warrior asked Davey if he knew anywhere where he could get growth hormone, which was something for healing. If anybody cares to look it up, they want to look up what, negative stuff about Ultimate Warrior or Davey, maybe look at what it was that Ultimate Warrior was trying to get. And Davey said, I don't know anybody that can get you that, and they were in London, and this was like, I guess, the day of SummerSlam. But he said, I don't know, they would maybe try somebody, and Davey had a name of somebody that had a gym in somewhere in that area of England, because Davey was from Northern England. He wasn't really a Londoner. He didn't know the gyms down there or anything, but he had, I imagine in his days of WWF, he had worked out in a gym in London. So he gave Ultimate Warrior um, the name of somebody that had a gym. And from then on, it was Ultimate Warrior's call on what he was going to do with it. So Ultimate Warrior, I guess, got caught getting things shipped to his home, wherever that was, I guess in Arizona somewhere. And when he was asked, who did you get the number from? He said, I got it from Davey. So Davey was implicated as an accessory, and Vince said, I'm under federal investigation, and I could lose my whole business here. I have to let you go, Jim Hellwig. And he called Davey, and he said, I have to let you go, Davey. And Davey said, okay. And I was upset about it because it was pretty fresh after SummerSlam, and I don't know, it was like October or something. And Davey was pretty happy. He was still with the company when Bret won the belt from Ric Flair, which Bret didn't know about, by the way, even though Bret seemed to think that, he already knew he was going to be the world's champion when he lost the belt to Davey at SummerSlam. It's like, I don't think so, but I mean, that's my conjecture. I mean, I could, maybe Bret did know, but as far as I knew, he didn't. And I felt bad for him that he was losing. And I don't believe anyone in my family was aware of Bret winning the belt from Ric Flair at SummerSlam.
How did Davey feel about losing the Intercontinental title so soon after SummerSlam to Shawn Michaels?
He was sad about it, but he just do what I'm asked to do. He wasn't really that vindictive to tell the promoter. I mean, it's kind of the promoter's belt. It's his call. If he says, you're losing it tomorrow, or that's, Davey was never funny. Never had an ego like that where he didn't. I mean, when he lost the belt in Birmingham again to Shawn at one night only.
So One Night Only, I was literally in the row behind you as a little boy. I was in the second row, so the side of the ring, and I was the next row behind. And yeah, that show, I mean, I've never seen heat like it in my life in terms of genuine. I guess this is when people talk about the 70s in wrestling.
Yeah.
I remember people throwing glass bottles at Shawn Michaels. I mean, that was close to a riot. Like, I've heard what Bret has said in his book about how the creative changed. What are your memories of One Night Only and how that all went down?
Well, we didn't know it was going to go that way at all, and it was just after Princess Diana had died, and there was one guy that was he was part of WWE that was kind of looking after things. It just was talked about, and we still didn't know at this point, but that Davey's sister Tracy should come down to the ring with Davey. And she had cancer again. She was in and out of remission her whole life. And Davey was really, really close to her. And they said that her life was nearing its end. So it was decided that Tracy would walk down to the ring, and she was fine. She just wanted to walk down by herself. And so that was a really a beautiful moment of SummerSlam, or One Night in your house. I think it was a One Night Only.
It was just One Night Only. Yeah, it was its own standalone British pay-per-view.
Yeah, and I think they planned it. I think that there was the thing that was going on with Bret was starting to grow. Like, okay, Bret's going to be leaving the company. I don't know at that point that Bret was leaving or not.
It was 2 days later that Bret was told by Vince that he couldn't fulfill his contract.
That's what I thought. So I think they were dismantling the Hart Foundation brick by brick because they thought when we asked Bret to leave, or not, I don't know how that went, how you phrased that, when they said to Bret, you're allowed to leave your contract, walk out of your contract because we can't pay you what we promised. I think that maybe they thought there's going to be a mass exodus of guys, and I think Bret thought that was going to happen as well when it all did come down, at the Montreal Survivor Series in November. But so we didn't know that Davey was going to be losing the belt, and then it kind of came up in the back like about 4 hours beforehand, if I'm not mistaken. If he was losing the belt, if he knew that prior, I don't remember. I just remember Owen came in and he was like, I don't think this is, I don't know. I think it's just like something doesn't seem right about this. Why is Davey out of the blue losing the
because it was the way he lost it. I mean, I know we're talking about a scripted sport here, but the way that match was booked was like such a humiliating loss, like with outside interference. But it was very emasculating of the Hart Foundation.
Yeah, and again, Davey never he just took it, like he's I don't think he was happy about how that went. It was pretty, it was kind of humiliating, but and Shawn smashed his knee brace, which he had just had made, and it was this custom made fiberglass knee brace with red, white, and blue colors, and he threw it out in the crowd. And I mean, Shawn was being a perfect heel for that, all of that, and China was involved, and I mean everybody, Hunter and Rick Rude, but it just seemed fishy that this out of the blue, this match over in England in Davey's home country was orchestrated, and the way he lost, and then quite soon after that, Bret was invited to reconsider his contract with his time with WWE, and perhaps he could go to WCW, and they'd even help him get a contract there. And that didn't seem, that was kind of odd, because they were they were head to head against each other, the two companies, WCW and WWF. But so, just note more, just to finish all of that up, coming from that 1997, the fall of 1997, the Montreal Screwjob happened. Jim Neidhart wasn't under contract, but he was at the Survivor Series. I believe he the whole Hart Foundation was there, but not Brian, because Brian had passed, sadly. But after it happened, Davey stuck by Bret. Davey was he actually paid. I mean, if you care to show it, he paid $100,000 US to get out of his WWF contract to support Bret in WCW. Leave the company where he was. I'm not saying he was over the moon about losing that in Birmingham the way he did, but he and Owen didn't have any. They weren't the ones being asked to leave. They didn't have any problems.
The kind of rumor and innuendo which has done the rounds for years has been that Davey losing the title in One Night Only was supposed to lead to a payoff at Mayhem in Manchester 9 months later, where he would regain the European title from Shawn.
I believe that there was big plans for Davey to be world's champion and maybe people that are coveting their own top spot, regardless of what country they're in or company they're in, might be saying, I gotta make sure that this never happens.
Title Run Toys Series 1. Dangerous Danny Davis. Wrath. Juventud Guerrera. Ernest the Cat Miller. And Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. Coming to the ring soon.
The irony is that I think Shawn Michaels was Davey Boy's ultimate opponent. I mean, those two genuinely made magic in everything they did. They were perfect for one another.
They had phenomenal matches. They really did work well together. Shawn was pretty flexible, and he could do a lot of he could fly around kind of the way Owen could fly around with Davey, and Shawn was taller, but boy, he was agile, and he could he made Davey look great, and Davey, I think, made Shawn look great. There are more matches, and I'm not taking anything away from SummerSlam 1992, but there are more phenomenal matches to Davey's list of matches than just that one.
Oh, absolutely.
Or just matches that he had with Bret. And,
I mean, apart from anything else, the match in December 1995, the In Your House match with Bret was, I don't think that gets talked about enough in how good that was.
No. Oh, I know. It was, and Davey took an upside down turnbuckle there. It's hard to find it if you don't have the WWE network or they're subscribed to them. But if you can ever find it, that match, Davey does an upside down turnbuckle and he bounces right on the top of his head. And I thought he broke his neck. He probably did do damage to his neck that night. So, it's just, and the whole match itself, and, Bret got his head got split open that night, and there was, the roles were reversed then. Davey was the bad guy, and he was really getting into his role, and Jim Cornette was part of it, and
you're a heel, of course, as well.
Yeah. I was sort of like, trying to be like a managerial role, nothing like Marlena or Sable. Like each of them had their own. They were totally different from each other, but I was more of a representative, let's say, or of like office administration. I didn't have a briefcase or anything like that, and then later as things went on with Davey and Jim Cornette, I got into a little more like a prettier, a little more because Jim Cornette was handling things so well, and then they got Clarence Mason as their lawyer, and
he had a briefcase.
Yeah, he had the briefcase, and Owen got involved, and it was just so. And then the matches with Davey and Shawn, and they could have gone back and forth. I mean, who's to say? It's just too bad that so much gets clouded by things, which I will get back to. But
it is
who's
because
to say?
I think one of the reasons that I really wanted to have you on the show and talk about this is because, SummerSlam 1992, as I've said many times till I'm blue in the face, but is the match that made me a wrestling fan. So specifically their match made me a wrestling fan. It's still my favourite match of all time. And it's impossible to consider that match without two equal dance partners, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it is impossible to do that. I don't know anybody ever that has taken full credit for a masterpiece wrestling match. I've never heard anybody do that.
And it wasn't until I'd read Bret's autobiography, which is a tremendous book as a piece of literature. But It's the first, when I read the breakdown of SummerSlam, it's the first time there were bits of that match that I'd never noticed before. That as a viewer of it, just sort of passed me by. But I mean, when you're there ringside, was there anything that you noticed that was off about the match?
No, I just was really concerned about Davey's left leg. And every time he'd bang it, I thought, is it gonna, is the staff gonna reignite? The infection was gone. It wasn't like there was still, the infection was gone. He was on some heavy duty antibiotics from like the 27th of July to before SummerSlam. But nothing was off about that match. And I've watched a lot of matches, from my time, probably started watching closely from about 1981 when I met Davey, but, where I could be, the second row in, but standing up and watching from the post, the ceiling, like the beam holding in these auditoriums, the pavilion, just watching from a bird's eye view. And then I started doing the music later and was up where the cameras were, and I could see things from the camera point of view, but still it was just one hard camera. So there was nothing amiss with that match. And then for Bret to say, oh, look at how dumb he looks here. It's like, I think that's what you call selling, Bret. But I never like to do that, to nitpick a match and say, oh, well, like, you see that look on Davey's face? He's acting. He's not really, or Davey gives Bret something and, holding Bret in a surfboard, I just don't think that's professional for me to say, oh, look at Bret's face there. Look, and you see he's wincing, because he's blown up, or he doesn't know what he's doing, or it's not true. And it's just stupid to do that, to break down match, move by move. But, when you're taking it, it's like if you have a TV show and you add canned laughter in every time, then all of a sudden it's funny. But if you add serious stuff, then it's serious. So when you've got Bret at like that thing at his bar last week, stopping and saying, look, this is what you're supposed to think here. Look, see that look on his face? That means he doesn't know what he's doing. And it's like, that isn't what that means at all. That's you are feeding things that are not accurate into the minds of your fans that'll believe anything that you say. There are some that know better, and there are wrestlers that know better, and they'll say there's no way that Davey was not 100% on his game. And he couldn't work out that whole summer because he was bedridden. He couldn't get his cardio up because he had the flesh-eating disease in his left leg. Like, Bret, how many times do I have to tell you this? He couldn't even go on a stationary bike to get his cardio up. So if he's breathing heavy, it's because he wasn't able to work out. He couldn't it's not because you dreamed up this confabulation. You've got something wrong in your head, that you've mixed some other things, some terrible things that happened in Davey's life, and you've mixed them up and you've put them into this SummerSlam 1992 match. Because it's not fair, Ben. I get so upset about it. Yeah. Oh, yeah, he might have been breathing heavily. Bret, you were breathing heavily at one point too. But he's not breathing heavily because he was doing crack cocaine with Jim Neidhart all summer. And Bret wasn't even there. He was in Calgary. And then to say, he said this at the show, that I answered the phone and said sheepishly, Davey's over at Jim's. So he couldn't get out of bed. He wasn't at Jim's. It's just so unfair. It's so unfair, man.
I think the irony of this situation generally, and this conversation we're having now, is, as you said, this has been named as the greatest SummerSlam match of all time. 40 years of SummerSlam, and that match has been named universally the best. for us fans in the UK, it's gone down as our favourite match of all time. This is not a match that failed on any level.
No.
It's a tremendous match, but is adored. That's the thing, and I will never tire of watching this match because it's a moment in time. It's they could have, even if there were huge mistakes made in that match, the fans would have forgiven it completely because they were there for Davey's moment,
and he deserved it. He didn't let his fans down. He wasn't taking that match for granted, or that honor that he was given to wrestle in front of his mom and dad, his family, his countrymen, his school teachers, his friends, his children, his in-laws. I mean, his wrestling peers, and then just for Bret to try to take that away from Davey, people will say, well, it doesn't matter, if he was on drugs or not, it was still great. It's like, but it does matter because he wasn't. And then again, I'm going in a loop here, but he was fired because he failed a drug. He might have failed a drug test. Lots of people failed drug tests in WWE, but Davey didn't fail any drug tests from July 20th, or when he hurt his leg, and he was drug tested at home. There may have been something after SummerSlam. I apparently in that somewhere I'm quoted as saying that he had failed a drug test after. I don't remember saying that, but he didn't. There were no drugs on Davey's other than antibiotics at SummerSlam, and it's just so it's unfair. And then it's again, Ben, I just don't understand why it even, for anybody to take 100% credit for it. And there are some guys, it's like, I don't care, it doesn't matter, it was still a good match. It's like, well, it's not fair, to say, Davey was blown up because he was on drugs. It's like, no, if he was blown up, it was because he was bedridden for most of August. And then we went to Goulburn, England, about 2 weeks leading into SummerSlam. We got into Manchester, and I don't know, it was probably somewhere around the 15th of August or somewhere around there, 20th of August. We were in his mom's and dad's house and doing interviews and from the press over there, and it just was so good to be home, and it's like I don't know, I do get upset about it, and I'm just not. Unfortunately, I've all the good things that Davey did in his life, a lot of them have been because he's not here to defend himself, have been overshadowed by things like okay. I don't know if you ever remember when Gene Okerlund would do those TV series. That was like a series called Confidential. Mm-hmm. Davey and I are both on it. It was after Owen died, and you can see my hair was really short. I was in a real decline, but I wasn't probably aware of how bad things were for me. But Davey was talking, and he said, I did have a drug problem. I was addicted to morphine. Davey never denied that. And when Davey was let go from WWF in the last run that he had there, it was drug related. It was morphine related. Cocaine was never Davey's thing. Davey liked to have the pain go away and be mellow. And he liked the opiates that would relax him and make it all go away. If you look back at all of his injuries, I mean, he had a really bad car accident, and in 1989 he had, I mean, all the stuff that he did just with his style of wrestling. The Dynamite Kid too.
Yeah.
You know, they're human beings that performed above and beyond, and their bodies took the toll for what they did. And it happened to lots of wrestlers. I'm not just saying it was them, but yeah. So Davey did have some problems with drugs, and he never didn't admit that. And when I wrote this horrible book, you know, that I agreed to participate in it, but during the interviews leading up to that book, I was extremely vulnerable. I mean, and Davey was too. I mean, look at what Davey went through. He lost his sister Tracy in November of 1998. He hurt his back in Fall Brawl at for WCW in September, and you know, he could have sued, but you know, that wasn't how Davey operated. He's like, I hurt my back lots of times. I can't say it was because of this or because of that. Maybe it was the final straw. Maybe that was the thing that did break his back. But he had
a trapdoor for the Ultimate Warriors.
Yeah, and he didn't know it was there. But you know, as soon as he went, basically the day he went, joined WCW. He had been in WCW in '93. And it didn't end well there. He just wasn't happy there, and he had been signed under Bill Watts, and you know, a different agreement with Bill Watts, and someone else took over Bill Watts' position and didn't want to honor what Bill Watts was giving Davey, and it was like, well, that's what I agreed to come to this company, was to get A, B, and C. And now you're telling me I'm not getting A and B, but I'll get C and F. Like, so Davey was not really happy to go back to that same company in '98, but he did do it because he was loyal to Bret. You know, and I mean, I want to just touch on Davey's loyalty. The issue with the Rougeaus in 1988 with Dynamite and Jacques Rougeau, that wasn't Davey's fight, and it turned out really badly. You know, and it shouldn't be the thing that I identify as Dynamite or Jacques Rougeau, but it was a big thing that happened, and the Bulldogs left the company. But Davey didn't have to leave the company. Actually, Davey and Dynamite didn't have to leave the company, but they did. And Davey stuck by Dynamite because that's how he was. He was really, really loyal. And, you know, so he stuck with Bret to the tune of $100,000 US, which is like 180,000. I don't know what it would be Canadian now, but definitely would be more than 150 US, which would be, it's a lot of money. And he did that to stick by Bret. And by February, Davey, it was just like, he said, I never should have left. And he was heartbroken. He was heartbroken. So he had lost. And we knew at this point that his sister was dying, because we already knew that at the Birmingham show. So he was just he's just kind of, you know, I don't think he was happy, and he probably had I don't think Jim Neidhart was happy. He ended up going over there, and it's like we we're on our own here.
They were just making up the numbers, weren't they? There was no plan for them on WWE.
No,
Right?
And it's like, Davey thinking, what would they have done with me if I had, the what ifs, but if I'd stayed with Owen, what if, and, instead of turning to the bottle or like lots do, I mean, we're all weak. I don't, people do things but I think Davey, and again, cocaine wasn't his thing. I think he's like, yeah, my back, my neck, my everything on me hurts. I'm gonna have I don't care. He was at he was getting in a low ebb. So by the time he hurt his back really badly at the Fall Brawl in September, so we've been going on quite a few months now. I was noticing things, and I was anyway. Davey and I are starting to fall apart, and I'm not here to be poor me. I did a really irresponsible thing, and I'm not. I had been on prescribed antidepressants and anti-anxiety, antidepressants, and sleep medication. And I'd been on them for a little while and they weren't working, and I just stopped them. I was just sort of like, well, it was like, I don't want people to feel sorry for me. I'm trying to put into perspective how out there I was. Like, I would go out in a snowstorm with a pair of running shoes and a little coat and walk like maybe I was trying to get attention or something, or people would slow down and who's that person with no coat on walking on the 20 below weather and coming in, and so people would say, are you, oh my gosh, are you okay? Like, I don't know. I was not dealing with a full deck. And then I took close to 100 of Davey's Xanax one night when he was home, and he was not himself. And I apparently was pronounced dead 4 times. So, and what I deserve to live with that guilt, what I put my mom and dad through, and my kids and Davey and everyone. Like, it was, but I was probably I shouldn't have just gone off all this stuff that I had been on. Probably wasn't a good idea. I'd been off everything for about, I don't know, 10 days. I have no idea if I was going to do it anyway. I mean, only God knows what would have happened one way or the other. But so I'm in the psychiatric ward, and Davey was so upset. He ends up trying to himself and ends up in the psychiatric ward, like by overdosing. And people can be so flippant on the internet, like, oh, you two pair of idiots, or oh, and you want to talk about your daughter now. It's like, I was not right. I can't stress that enough, how incapable I was of doing anything properly, competently at that time. And so Davey went in, he went in, and now it's kind of how I let Bret and his wife Julie at that time, they came over to talk to Davey about getting him to go into rehab, but it wasn't like there was nobody. Like, Davey only did it because it was Bret. I appreciated Bret coming out of his home like right after Christmas to come over to talk to Davey. Davey was going to go anyway, but Bret and Julie talked to Davey, and unfortunately, one of the people that helped get Davey into the rehab in northern Alberta was the person that I trusted with my life story, with my autobiography. She approached me to do it, and she was getting to know me at this point, and probably from what I'm thinking now was thinking, this is some good material here. This family is, I got a lot of, I don't know. I just think it was, I was not thought of with consideration, but more of how to exploit this. So anyway, Davey did the rehab.
It is the unfortunate side effect of wrestling memoirs. The majority of them are essentially extensions of dirt sheets. They are burial books, and that's something I've worked very hard to do with the books I'm now writing. And there are some great books out there that don't do that. But by and large, wrestling autobiographies or ones which are co-written tend to focus on the negative.
Yeah, it was awful, and I forgot to mention Davey's sister Tracy died in November, just before, about a month before my attempt. And my attempt wasn't just me saying, I'm going to go in the garage with the car started and the garage doors open. It was pretty bad, and so Davey just wanted to explain. So at the time of Davey's sister Tracy's death, we didn't know his mom was dying, and his mom knew that Davey was having, and Davey and his mom were really, really close. It's part of why I love Elvis so much. He reminds me of Davey, of that relationship he had with his mom. He could tell his mom anything. He was so close to his mom, and he definitely was respectful and loved his father very much. But he was so close with his mom, and she was dying, and she didn't want him to know. So she let him do the rehab. He came out, and the day he got out of rehab, they phoned. So we're in February now of 1999, and they said, your mom's dying. She's got days to live. And he got on the plane right away, and he was there, and she died. And he was just devastated. And in England, the Catholic families have the casket in the home, and people can come to the home and visit. And he was just mourning over her body for days. It was just, and I feel so bad for him, because I know he wanted to get well at that point, but if he could only have gone to see his mom, the if onlys, but anyway, so then he's like, man, I did the rehab, and my back is not getting any better. It's just my pain is, and everyone's saying, including me, like, you just went through rehab. Like, it's like, Diana, he went through rehab. He's not on any more painkillers, but that doesn't mean his pain went away. But that's kind of that mindset that comes out of it when, you come out of rehab and you don't have any more pain. You won't complain about anything anymore. It's like his back was more acute and intense than it ever was. And he went to the emergency, and he said, my pain is so bad. And they told him to go away. They said, you're here for painkillers. He's like, yeah, I am. Well, they're like, no, but you can't have them, because you just went through rehab. So anyway, we were at a coffee shop with my mom, and Davey was called on his cell phone by the emergency and had finally gotten the blood work back and discovered his white blood cell count was just crazy, like over the out the door. It was so bad. They said, "You got to get to the hospital, emergency right away. You're sick." And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, I know I'm sick." So they put him in almost as soon as he got there. They put him on a morphine drip, which is what he had just come out of rehab for. And he was in this body cast for, I don't know, a couple of months. And Owen started visiting him in the hospital. And he got let go from WCW, just completely terminated. And yeah, and you know, Owen got him his job back with WWF, and it's like, yeah, come back and work here. We don't, you know, we'll find something for you. And Vince was, because Davey was like, I don't know if Vince would ever want to talk to me again. You know, like made it pretty obvious I didn't want to be in his company. So anyway, Vince was very welcoming, and like 10 days later, Owen died, and now it's like, and I'm but there are more people that lost Owen than two people in this world that lost Owen. And you know, and you know, Davey lost his best friend. You know, he had lots of best friends. You know, Jim was one of his best friends. Bret was one of his best friends, and Owen was one of his best friends. And I really think that it's just too much for Davey. And he still had the back pain, and he started using again. And when that happened, I was so, you know, we're talking about, again, I'm not trying to be a victim here. I'm just pointing out total reversal of fortune, 4 deaths, Owen, his mom, his sister, and my mom. But my book came out before just as my mom was, she went into a coma, thank God, before my book came out. But it was just so anyway, I just really feel like that book, there was just such a salacious agenda, and I kind of felt like I was led into a false sense of security. And you know, like I never saw the book before it was edited.
Really?
I certainly didn't see the final edit.
Right.
And it's not the story that I wanted told. You know, I trusted somebody with my book and to write content that was nothing like what I wanted. You know, I just don't support, I didn't support the book. I was glad it got pulled, but you know, somebody else's like their reductive take on my life is really just too much for them to have ever been able to put into words, and it just turned into a real abortion of a book. And I own it. Like I agreed to participate in it. I don't know if somebody was going to do a story on somebody that they would pick that particular time to write about them, unless they did have a salacious agenda. Like, okay, I, you know, just lost my reversal of fortune. My husband's completely, he's not himself. We lost Owen, we lost Tracy, we lost Joyce. I tried to kill myself. Yeah, this is a good time to sit down and have somebody tell and So I don't want to keep bringing up my book. I don't even want to refer to it, but lots of people online
I think I think it's important, and I'm glad we've had this opportunity to record a follow up conversation, Diana, because it was a key thing that came out of doing Davey Boy's Hall of Fame last year. There were lots of comments saying this is different to what's in her book. So I'm glad to clarify the situation.
Yeah, that's. I don't know how loud I got to scream, how much I got to say. I denounce that book. I don't want anything to do with it. I hate that book. I hate what was written in it. And so much of it was taken out of context. I don't even remember saying some of the things that were said in it. I mean, it's almost 30 years ago. Well, 27 years ago. Well, it was published in 2001, but it was started around somewhere in 99. So anyway, so years later, I'm not allowed to defend Davey because of some abortion. I can't, it's the best word. And abortion is too good for it. I mean, what you abort are innocent babies. This book was just, it was terrible, and I wince every time and my daughter never hears the end of it. And my son Harry, he's a guy who just doesn't get. I don't want to keep getting baited into these things either, but. With people online, but they'll word for word quote like 3 paragraphs out of that nasty, ugly book that was pulled. It's like, yeah, it was, but so many other people, it's like, so my book was, I'm telling people, don't buy it, don't read it. I don't even like to sign it when people bring it to me at autograph sessions, but I don't want to, they'll tell me, they just got it in the mail and it's, they haven't even read it. It's like, I sometimes write, this is an ugly book. Read my fictional Cauliflower Heart books. They're way better. They really were more, better writing in them. But I don't understand how people can't let me defend Davey now when he's not here to defend himself. Davey was alive when that book was, that awful autobiography, my life told to somebody else. And you already said that so well, how people, you tell your story to somebody else and they it's like, it's not their family. They don't care. They don't, it's like, some of the things, it's like, I'm even had even argued with her about them, and even like thrown my arms up and said, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. That's in the book. It's like, oh, that's not what I said. And if they weren't, trying to, I just wish I could have seen a copy of it before it went. But like Davey, he and I were both surrounded by really opportunistic leeches at our lowest points of our lives, and then we reconciled. We reconciled, and starting in 2002. It was after my mom had died, but Davey told me, he said, regarding the book, that person didn't like me, Diana, that person didn't like you, that person doesn't like our kids, that person doesn't like our family. So I know, like, Davey was sympathetic to me. He's like, I know the person who did it. I know how they're motivated. And he just said, I just feel bad for the people that have been hurt, but I see what happened to you, Diana. It's like, you were running with the wrong people, and you weren't able to defend yourself. It's just
High interest rates laying the smackdown on your finances, or your business loan application keeps getting body slammed due to poor credit score? Then you need Focus Finance Solutions as your ultimate tag team partner. Need funding fast to grow your business or your property portfolio? We can access a powerful network of lenders to secure loans tailored to your needs. So get in touch for your free consultation with no obligation today. Let the People's Broker and the team at Focus Finance Solutions help you pile drive those rates so you can climb that property ladder like a champ.
Well, I mean, I really appreciate you being as open, and as vulnerable as you have today. I mean, this is, a level beyond the kind of vulnerability we usually hear in a conversation, especially in the wrestling world. So thank you for being so open about everything. And I appreciate you kind of trusting me and this platform with getting your story out, really, Diana, because your family has been through a great deal.
Well, I thank you for giving me. I trust you, Ben. I've seen your YouTube work. We've interviewed before. I've seen your podcasts, your written work, and you're ethical. You're fair. You're not salacious, and I feel that you have a very good heart, and you know what. And you're a wrestling fan. You'd be the first person to say what a great wrestler Bret Hart is. What a great wrestler Davey was.
I mean, look. I mean, as you are well aware, your brother Bret was my favorite wrestler of all time. My second favorite wrestler of all time was your late husband. So I have a lot of skin in the game as a fan. I've got their figures behind me. I've got signed stuff everywhere. Like, your family has meant a great deal to me, and it continues to. But at the same time, as I've got older, I recognise that all of these larger-than-life characters are also human beings, and human beings with flaws and problems, and that's what this show is all about, really, is for real people beyond wrestling.
Oh yeah, I'm one of the most flawed people. Everyone is, as you just said, but I'm
right there with you. I want to wrap this conversation up on a positive. I've seen that lovely Hall of Fame ring on your finger a lot during this interview. Obviously, Davey was the first inductee into the Wrestling Life Hall of Fame, which meant a lot to me to be able to do that for your family. What did it feel like for you to go through the WWE Hall of Fame experience, albeit having to do it during the pandemic?
That was hard to do, actually. Harry did an amazing job. He had to talk to all these screens, computer screens.
It was weird for Thunderdome.
It was
weird to watch. That Hall of Fame was weird to watch.
Was your Hall of Fame? It was more. It was just. I guess I felt like we were more. Well, I felt like I was more a part of it, but. In fairness to WWE, they only had a certain amount of time. This was I think this was the first Hall of Fame they did where we were in a time slot, because I hadn't been to the last Hall of Fame I was at was when the Road Warriors were inducted. And I think that was 2011, maybe 2012.
But some of them went really long.
Yeah. So I think they over the years decided we got to cap it on this much. So we had a bulldog named Buffy. She came from San Francisco. She's a really, really sweet dog. That was some of the stupid things during that pandemic. It's like, you can't have a dog in the building. It's like, why? Like, I don't understand. Well,
But you
it's
could have
COVID.
live wrestling. Yeah.
It's like, well, so I think it was Johnny Ace. Mark Carano was the first one that had to present it to somebody about the dog, about not poor Buffy, but because she held her head up high for every second of that. But Mark Carano, then he took it to John Laurinaitis, and then John Laurinaitis, he just said, "Oh, the dog is." I'm going to talk to Vince, but as far as I'm concerned, the dog is coming on stage with Harry, and so she did. And at the end, Harry was talking about Davey in heaven, and Buffy put her head up. It was kind of just the perfect timing of it. It was a weird time though. That 2021, they had no fans were allowed at it, and
Because it was supposed to be 2020, wasn't it? It was supposed to be the year before.
it's supposed to be 2020. So they did. They kind of inducted two classes, 2020 and 2021, in the same thing, and that also was part of the time crunch. And and then we had to go there about 2 weeks before, because we couldn't get the building due to some places still being shut down due to the stupid pandemic. So then they had the WrestleMania went over 2 nights because they wouldn't allow the full capacity. They could, which was funny because
the weirdest thing to watch about that time was here in the UK, we were on full lockdown for a third time. So whilst there were 25,000 people in that stadium, I wasn't even allowed to have my one friend round to watch that on TV with me.
It's just so ridiculous. No critical thinking. Just do as you're told, which I never was good at doing,
Nor me, but I mean, the important thing is, of course, he was inducted, and I'll always be grateful that you accepted the induction as well for last year to kick off the Wrestling Life Hall of Fame, because that really started this Hall of Fame off with a bang. It really showed what this is all about. This is a serious, legitimate Hall of Fame, and we're beginning with the biggest star in British wrestling history.
Yeah, Davey deserves that. That was such a great night, that Hall of Fame, despite everything. And Davey's career should be celebrated.
Yeah.
And, just, I know we're wrapping it up here. Just in closing, though, I want to say, at the time of Davey's death, in the leading up to Davey's death, he was clean. He didn't have any. And that was part of, like 2002.
Because he tagged with Harry, hadn't he? They had a match together not long before.
He was clean. He was thinking clearly. He knew what he didn't want in his life. He knew he wanted his family back. He was reconciling with me. I finally got his toxicology report, as autopsy. I didn't see it, so when WWE did Davey's Hall of A&E special, and that was around 2021 or 2022, it might have been even later, but I didn't see Davey's autopsy. I only saw it, and Georgia and Harry had access to it. It's about 20 pages long. And, you don't really want to read about how your dad's head was wired shut, or his head had, because they had to look at his brain. They did look at all kinds of things, but I don't think they were looking for what they were looking for the usual suspects. Was he on the drugs that he had been on in No, he didn't have any of that in his system. He had traces of testosterone in his system. He had traces of opiates, traces. So like in his hair that's growing out. So that like the last, but he had nothing in his system, nothing in his bodily fluids, including his urine and his blood. And all this time, it's so unfair to Davey. All this time, those nasty people that were with him, and they were trying to have him cremated over his dad's will, like within hours of his death, and they never phoned 911. I don't know what you call 911 there, the ambulance, but the ambulance wasn't phoned. I don't know how many tens of minutes went by before the ambulance was the girl phoned her friend who owned the house. The friend who owned the house was sitting in on this girl for the interview with the constable. The interview lasted 3 minutes, and this girl is answering part of the owner of the house is helping answer the questions. And then that girl, the owner of the house, said, and then I phoned my husband, and then he came to the house. It's like, okay, well, how come nobody phoned 911? And there's just a lot of things that do not add up. And but Davey's in a good place. I know he's in heaven, and he's not in any pain anymore. And when you're in heaven, you're not meant to be sad anymore.
No.
But I just don't. I don't know if Davey's even aware of, with his soul or whatever is gone to heaven. I don't know if he's aware of what's going on down here on earth, but it's not right that he's not being given the credit he deserves, and he's not here to defend himself. And I will defend him and his fans, I hope, too. And I'm not trying to make this, like TV-ish, like, me and his fans are going to defend him till the day he dies. But I mean that with all my heart. I will defend Davey where, people saying, well, he was let go from WWF because of drugs. Well, there was some issues there with Ultimate Warrior and Davey, and some things being shipped to United States, but that doesn't mean Davey was on drugs. But he may have failed a urine test, but SummerSlam 92, Davey was not on. He was not on coke.
I hate that there'll be an audience of people who have stuck around for this entire conversation and not just heard the clips today, because you have explained everything in a very clear and systematic way, and that's what I was hoping we would get out of today. And I think the one takeaway I'd like to have really is that remembering that actually, you are a human being, your daughter's a human being, your son's a human being. It's very easy in the world of wrestling to think about the characters, Bret Hitman Hart, British Bulldog, all these characters, but these are real people. Your children lost a father, and I would implore anyone who's watching this who maybe does want to send a snarky comment just hold back and just to think about the receiver of that comment. And the last thing to close, really, obviously we started off with SummerSlam 92, talking about this recent event, which has obviously precipitated you putting out these posts. Do you think there can be resolution between you and Bret?
I hope so. I really hope so. I asked him to stop doing it, and he said he would, but he didn't. But my mom and dad wouldn't want us to be fighting, and they certainly wouldn't want us airing our dirty laundry, which is why I was so upset at him for making this live presentation on, like, 10 TV screens at his bar. It's like, how much more public can you get than that? So I wasn't the one that, but again, it takes two to tango. I don't want to keep, getting baited into things, but I just had to stand up for Davey and say something. I can't have it always being my daughter, Georgia. I mean, she doesn't mind. She'll stick up for her father, defend him, for the rest of her life, for all the good things that he did, and so will Harry in Harry's own way. But I just can't. I hope I don't have to. It's part of why I wanted to talk to you. We were already scheduled to do a talk. I think we were going to talk about my new website, finally, after all these years. www.officialdianahart.com. And
we had a very different conversation planned, and then this all happened over the weekend. I was like, well, I knew what we were going to talk about now, and I'm glad we have. I'm glad that you came to me to have this conversation and put this out there.
Yeah, I hope for resolution. If it just stops, that would be a resolution. I can't get Bret to do, if he doesn't see it my way, despite the facts I've given him. Okay, but would he please quit it? Just quit giving his narrative, because that just provokes me. And I mean, I've been sitting on this basically since 2008, since his book came out. Didn't say anything, and then it just kept stewing, and then it just burst like a big pussy boil, and here I am right now talking about it, and and I do think that Bret has some concussion, some things that have just, it's called confabulation from what I've heard, but to be invited as a guest to sit in a public presentation where they're just gonna crucify Davey, it's like I can't do it, Captain. I can't do it anymore. So, but God bless Bret. He's has given his all for wrestling, and I am grateful for the things that I got to be a part of, because of my family, him included. The Hart Foundation had Jim Neidhart, Ellie's husband, my brother Owen, Brian Pillman at one point, who was my brother Bruce's tag team partner in the old Stampede days, and he was a brother in arms. He was a great guy. He'd go to the line for you. And Davey, of course, and had Dynamite, things gone differently. He might have been a part of that. The Dynamite Kid, another phenomenal asset and influence in wrestling. Not given credit, it's overshadowed by things that So, but that's for another day. But guys that aren't here to defend themselves, it's like I said at the beginning with the proverb 327, when it's in my hands, in the power of my hands to do right where it is deserved. And Davey deserves this. He deserves to have his name cleared on well, that's not the right word. It sounds like he's a criminal, but he deserves to get the credit. They both did. That was a beautiful, and I was so happy to be a part of it. And it's like, Bret, don't keep tainting it. Don't keep taking it away from everyone in your family that loved it so much, to say that it was all because of you, or other than the one good thing that Davey did in the match. even at the end, he's like, and he looked at me too soon. It's like, what are you talking about? He looked at you too soon. He's like, he just won this belt. He looked at you like, thank you, man. Thank you. My brother, thank you. And Bret's like, and he looked at me too, and I was like, I was mad. Now I just sat on the middle rope, and I was like, it's like, what? You, I don't understand. Poor Davey couldn't do anything.
There can never be a perfect match in wrestling. For me as a fan, the two closest to perfect matches are Bret versus Stone Cold at WrestleMania 30, Bret versus Davey at SummerSlam 92.
Yeah.
And I think they are as close to a perfect match as you can ever get.
Yeah. Good picks.
Yeah.
That Bret against Steve was... Now, he should have picked that to talk about at that. Wasn't that amazing? That match was so intense. Completely different set of everything that was different in that, and Steve was, man, he had so much to, he like, I don't know if the fans ever saw him in quite that light before, and then Bret, it was like a bear and a lion, or a bear and a tiger. Like, it was just it was a phenomenal fight.
Bret knew, didn't he? Bret knew that he was going to make Steve. He knew that Austin was the future of WWF.
That's what Bret says. Yeah, that's what Bret says. I guess it's who knows. I don't know if I could ever say that. I mean, even if I was as the top of my game, I don't. But maybe you can say it in the way you just said it, in a way that doesn't sound too lofty. But
yeah,
it was a really good. Well, more than that, it was a phenomenal square off, those two. It really made you. Let's say glad to be a wrestling fan, but if you brought somebody to wrestling that maybe wasn't a believer, you show them that match, or Davies in his, or lots of them. But that match was just, and Steve bleeding at the end, and he was swearing and sweating, and Bret's just like, he's pouring on the intensity. It was so good. It was like, you were tired after. It was like, ooh.
Yeah. Well, look, but before we do wrap up, because actually, if you could indulge me for 5 more minutes, I'd love to finish on a real high. July 1997, Canadian Stampede in your house.
Oh, yeah.
For me, that is the loudest pop you will ever hear in wrestling, and it gets incrementally louder and louder and louder. And you're there that weekend as Mrs. Calgary, is that right?
Yeah, I was Mrs. Calgary.
Mrs. Calgary, what was it like for you to be a part of that, and what was it like for your mum and dad to kind of see everything they'd, I guess, built, this incredible family and everything in Calgary kind of crescendoing on that one night? It was incredible, Ben. Who would have guessed that? Like, at one point, like back in those days when we were like much younger, that, like, if you were like, the first time I was at the Saddle Dome where that Canadian Stampede happened, the very first show at the Saddle Dome was Duran Duran, and I was at that concert. But if you had said to me at that concert, this big Saddle Dome, pretty neat building, it's built like a saddle and, jam-packed, and you'd said to me one day, Davey, your boyfriend Davey, and this, your brother Owen's going to be wrestling, and Bret, and Jim Neidhart, and Brian Pillman, this guy that you meet one day. Well, you guys are going to be at this thing, and it's going to be called I think they did have pay-per-views, but they were very rare, like, for the odd thing. I think Mr. Olympia was doing
pay-per-views. But anyway, said I would have said no. That's not. I can't even picture that, but it happened, and it was.
And your baby brother would be the one to get the win.
Yeah, he was, and it seemed like no matter what the Harts did in that match, that they loved us, because I think Owen was cheating, but
there was plenty of heelish stuff, but it didn't matter, did it?
No, it didn't. It was kind of funny, and the Alberta Premier at that time, the Honorable Ralph Klein, he was there in the front row, and his father was a boxer, and he had known my father. His dad was Phil Klein, and Ralph was very good friends with my family, and he was just like thrilled to pieces to be in the front row, sitting with my mom and dad, and a lot of us had the white cowboy hats. That's a sort of a thing in Calgary for Stampede, to wear, well, any time of the year if you have a white hat, but cowboy hats everywhere, and how many cousins and of like nieces and nephews. There was like 38 of them at that time, and it was just such a good time because it was so loud, and the fans, no matter what, they just loved everyone. The story was good. It was Gold Dust, Ken Shamrock,
Legion of Doom,
and Legion of Doom, yeah, and Stone Cold, and then Brian, Davey, Jim, Bret, and Owen. And I got to walk down because I was legitimately Mrs. Calgary, so it was appropriate that I was actually a part of this. And when I came out, when they announced Davey and I got to come out, and they announced me too, but like I couldn't believe it. It was so loud. But what a beautiful noise. It was so exciting. What a good time for my family and for wrestling fans and for Stampede wrestling fans, Hart fans. I mean, you got your factions, some people are Hart fans, but they don't really follow wrestling, and some are. But we had it all encompassed in that Saddle Dome, and it was a pay-per-view, so it was going all over the world. And as we started going into the ring at the end, and I remember Brian Pillman was helping my mom in, and she was, I don't know if in her life she'd ever been inside a wrestling ring in her whole life. And Brian was helping her in, and he was so, like treating her like she was so delicate. And, this big, rough wrestler, with the biker gear on, and then he's like handling my mom, like, he was just so sweet. And, I really loved how proud it made my mom and dad, like, to see it all. Like, this was all, and I'm going to get a little emotional here. It was all because of them, all of that. Even like the WWE, it was all because of them. They just, they were so humble. They did, for over 40 years, pretty much 52 weeks of the year, almost every day of the week, they did a show with somewhere. And, sometimes the vans would break down, or the rings, the ropes would be broken, or something went wrong. And, and the wrestlers that were all part of it, they were all part of this for decades, part of this, I just, because I saw a lot of it, I'm very defensive of wrestling in general, because this is the only wrestling that I really know. I didn't know the Deep South wrestling, or the Florida wrestling, or even like the England wrestling. All I knew was Stampede wrestling until it became where we were part of the WWF. And then I saw that on like a totally different, much bigger scale, with production and stuff. Is a totally different different breed, but it was that wrestling style and people, it's just so different now, but my mom and dad, the stuff they went through, and and I do get with the media how unfair the media was with my dad. So I don't listen to the news. I'm not like weird or anything. I feel like everything that comes out of a TV pertaining to I don't believe it. When they're telling me when I'm 7 years old that my dad's a fake, and I see him in the kitchen where he's walking with like a fiddler crab because his back is out. It's like, and hasn't slept more than an hour because he got in late, and he's getting 12 kids ready for, maybe not 12. Smith and Bruce would have been out of the house, and my mom already
a lot of kids. I mean, I've got two, and I don't know how I do that sometimes. There's a lot of kids in that Hart family.
Yeah, it was, and my dad he'd get our piping hot oatmeal in the morning and make a big pot of it. But he was pretty heavy with the servings too. He gave us, because he had no food when he was growing up, and during the Depression, neither did my mom, but they didn't like to waste food. And so just, another thing, I guess, while I'm at it, just stomp the myths, but that horrible story about my dad serving people food with the spatula that he just scooped up some cat or dog diarrhea is just so unfair to my dad. That never happened. He had a spatula because that's actually a really good thing if you have, sloppy animal mess. It's really good a metal spatula can get it off the rug really, really well. But he had one for that and he used to keep it in the floor. And then he had all his kitchen stuff. And most people didn't go in the kitchen anyway. And to be honest, my dad wouldn't have been serving eggs because it's just not, he'd give you a cup of coffee and a piece of toast, but eggs wasn't really something that it just wasn't something that he served. I mean, we had eggs, we had hens and stuff, but whatever that is that he was apparently serving. But I think people tell me this with like great affection, and then Stu gave me the eggs with the spatula, and you could see the cat mess, and and I said, that never happened. No, but it did. I said, no, it didn't. It did. I said, no, it did not happen. That didn't happen. Okay, what year was it? Oh, well, it was 2005. Like, well, he wasn't even alive then, and you didn't even come to Calgary. But the story goes back, some of the people that tell me, it's like, I don't know who started it. I have no idea who started it, but it's like, these, much like this whole conversation, myths turn into what people think are facts. And to think that my dad, who was starving as a kid, and we didn't even have money for food. We ate, but it's like to be wasting food, to be giving somebody their food, and it's like, no, but he was smiling when he did it. It's like, no, that never happened, and I don't like it when anybody says that story, and it's just not fair to my dad. And again, to make these things, it's like, well, my dad isn't here to say, no, that never happened, but it didn't. It didn't happen with any kind of food, and they never. We were practical people. We were very practical people. Yeah, there was a spatula involved, but not the same spatula that he was serving our food on. And yeah, lots of times there were cats on the table when we were eating, and but there's that's just anyway.
I mean, as we said at the start, I mean, I think there's a lot of there's a lot of myths, there's a lot of stories around, and there are also people who are no longer here to speak up for themselves. So I hope this conversation has been cathartic for you, and I hope that it to hopefully put some of these myths to bed.
I hope so. I mean, you still have those people that won't hear of it and won't get out of any of this that I love Bret. I'm his sister. He's my brother. Our parents wouldn't want this. I just wanted Bret to stop it. But they won't get out of it that how great Davey was, that he was what he was actually dealing with at SummerSlam 92, and they'll never let me forgive my book. It's like, yeah, I own that. But I will stick up for Davey. I just, hopefully won't get baited into any more, I just, people can be, some of the wrestling fans can be some of the most beautiful people. I hear it every year when it comes time to remembering Davey or remembering Owen or my mom and dad or Smith or, and then sometimes people can be like really the very worst. So
yeah. Well, I want to. We'll draw this to a close now, but I want to thank you so much, Diana, for being so open today and for choosing me and my show to share so much of yourself with today. So thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I'm sorry if I did seem a little heavy at times, but hopefully there were a few parts in this that were put a smile on people's faces. And, I'd be the first one to say Bret is one of the greatest. And so is Davey.
Thank you so much, Dana.
Okay.
That's it for another Wrestling Life. Thank you so much for my guest today. Thank you to all of you for joining me. Thank you, as always, to my brilliant producer, Jeff Easton from Tall Lake Productions, for bringing Wrestling Life to life. We've got so many of these fantastic conversations in our archives, so please do check us out wherever you get your podcasts. And the most important thing of all, please hit that follow button, please like us, please tell a friend, and please talk about us using the hashtag WrestlingLifePod. So that's it for another episode. I've been Ben Veal. This has been Wrestling Life with Ben Veal. I'll see you soon for more real talk from real talent. Bye.
I'm Sean Mooney, and this has been Wrestling Life with Ben Veal, your go-to destination for real talk from real talent.